got the hair ties. There's 5, I think. Thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay. Hey guys, happy Taco Tuesday! So I don't know about you guys, but I've been thinking a lot about cutting my own hair. I've been watching a lot of those videos, and I don't know if you guys know who Brad Mondo is, but he's this YouTuber who does incredible videos on hairstyling tips and what not to use for your hair. And I found myself watching a lot of his videos recently, and I had this bright idea to trim my own hair. My mom told me she has a pair of hair scissors, and I was like, no way, that's so much fun. So I thought, why not do it myself? I don't have to wait for the salons to reopen. So while I'm trimming my hair, I wanted to talk to you guys about the first story that I read in the Bible when I was little, and it was the story of Samson and Delilah. A juicy one. So I actually read this story in a kid's version. It was a comic book Bible. It was one of the coolest things ever. I don't know if they still make them, but highly suggest if you've never seen it before. I reread it recently and I was like, I have to make a video about this. So here we are. So Judges 13 through 16 actually covers the entirety of Samson's life. It starts from birth and then ends with his death. It's when we get to chapter 16 and start talking about Delilah that I'll actually be trimming my own hair. So if you already know the background on his life and you're good to go and you've heard the story, go ahead and skip here and get right to the juicy stuff. But if you've never heard this story before, I say strap in and stay tuned because there is a lot of lead up to his meeting with Delilah that changes so many things. So now that you know what's going on, let's go ahead and start prepping my hair. So I was actually told in the video that I need to straighten my hair before separating it, so we're gonna start with that step. All right, so if you stayed, you've either never heard of this story or you just love history like myself. Either way, I'm proud of you and I hope this is as entertaining as possible. By the way, my mirror is right in front of me, so if I keep looking over this way, that is why. Okay guys, so for our background of this whole story, the Israelites kept turning away from God, and so they ended up getting punished by God by now being under Philistine rule. And that's the setting, kind of context behind this whole story of Samson. So the Israelites are being punished, they're under Philistine rule, it's no bueno, and this man has a wife. So the woman actually has a dream where an angel comes to her and basically tells her, you are going to get pregnant. Good news, right? And then he tells her that her son is going to be the one that delivers the Israelites from the Philistines, meaning the punishment is basically over. So basically the woman tells her husband, obviously, and she's like, hey, this angel came to me and is like, we're gonna have a kid. And so the dad's like, interesting. Actually, can you pray and see if we can get this angel down here for some more information? And so the angel pays a visit, and that's the rest of chapter 13. And before I forget, in chapter 13, it's very important because one parts of information that the angel tells them is that Samson is to be a Nazirite, also known as being dedicated to God from birth. So Nazirite children are very special. They're actually held by these rules. So Samson will consistently be dedicated to God from birth if he follows certain rules. And the main rule in this story is that his hair can never be touched by a razor, meaning it can never be cut. All right, on to 14. So Samson ends up growing up and he falls in love with a Philistine woman. Now remember, the Israelites and Philistines, not friends. Might as well be a Capulet and Montague situation we're going into here. His parents are like, dude, could you not just find a woman with our people? Like, why do you gotta go all the way to the Philistines? Those people are crazy. And Samson is like, well, I love her. And what the parents didn't know at the time is that the Lord actually was moving Samson to get to know the Philistine people so that way Samson can start his life journey of getting the Israelites out of the Philistine rule. So essentially, this woman was kind of like a gateway for God to use. Anyways, so Samson ends up meeting up with this woman and asking to marry her. On one of the many trips that Samson took to go visit the Philistine woman he was courting to marry, the Spirit of the Lord sent a lion to attack Samson. It was at this point that Samson found out he had a superhuman amount of strength when he killed the lion to shreds and the carcass was just left on the travel road he took. So this lion being dead is extremely important because it kind of symbolizes and foreshadows Samson killing the Philistines. So when Samson brings his parents with him to go visit his wife, Samson comes across the lion carcass when he's by himself, and he finds a community of bees inside the carcass, which is super abnormal. And there's a lot more in translations and the terminology that was used with the bees that I could go into, but I digress. All you need to know to understand the story is that this is a big deal because it is kind of the catalyst for the next part of the story where there is a riddle that changes and sets things in motion. All right, now that my hair is much more straight, it is time for me to section off my hair. All right, so we are still in chapter 14. There is a feast happening for kind of like for the wedding that Samson was having with the Philistines, because remember his wife is a Philistine, and so they were having this huge wedding feast, and Samson's like, I have this riddle, and if you get this riddle right, I will give you and your men 30 garments and 30 pieces of clothing, but if you get it wrong, you owe me 30 garments and 30 pieces of clothing. Is this the apex? I was told to do this from the apex. I don't know. I'm just estimating at this point. I really hope I'm doing this right. That looks good, right? All right. So the riddle, in case you were curious, is what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? So the men are kind of upset with this because they only have the 7 days of the feast to come up with the answer. And honestly, what kind of a riddle is that? Like, what? And so they're just frustrated, and they end up telling the wife behind Samson's back, hey, if you don't get us the answer to the riddle that Samson told us, then we will burn your house down and burn your father. Sounds pretty messed up if you ask me. And so this woman went ahead and did what any woman in her position would probably end up doing, and she was like, okay, I'll listen to them and I'll get the truth out of Samson. And so she decides to cry, yes, cry, for the next 7 days of the feast. And she continuously asks Samson to tell her, and he gets fed up and he finally gives in and tells her the answer. Oh man, I don't know if this is even. Okay, wait. So if I put it back, when Brad Mondo did it, it looked so easy. So obviously she spills the tea and lets all the men at the table know, and they get the riddle right, and Samson goes ahead and kills several men in order to get the garments that the guys who guessed the riddle right were promised. And Samson goes home angry to his father and threatens to get revenge on the Philistines. Thus, the plan to set the Israelites free is set in motion. So I probably forgot to mention that when Samson went to go visit his father when he was angry, he didn't take his wife with him. So while Samson was at his father's, his wife was given away to another man by her own father. So as any good loving husband would do, he goes back to visit his wife, and he is shocked to find out that she is with another man. So as any good citizen in his position would do, Samson decides to set some torches on fire, and he ties them to foxtails, which I think is super cool. And he sets the foxes running through all of the Philistine olive groves, vineyards, fields, you name it, anything that produces good growing crops. He releases these foxes with torch tails, and everything burns to the ground. And the Philistines, being the calm, cool, collected folks that they are, decide that a proper way to punish Samson would be to, of course, burn his wife and her father to the ground as well. So obviously, Samson decides to slaughter them. I mean, what else would a good-natured human being with any sense of remorse do? So Samson ends up staying in a cave, and this is not good because the Philistines are looking for him, so they take over Judah, and Judah's like, why are you here? And the Philistines are like, oh, we're here to get Samson. And so the Judean people are like, fine. And so they go find Samson inside the cave, and they basically tell Samson, you gotta go, bud, because the Philistines are taking over our land, and we do not like it. I think if I just pull it down a little bit, we should be good. And it just needs to be even. So Samson's like, fine, I'll go over to the Philistines. I've been caught, but promise not to kill me. And they're like, okay, fine, no problem. So they tie him up. And mind you, they don't know about his superhuman strength. And so now we come to the climax of chapter 15, where Samson breaks free once the Judean people bring him over to the Philistines, and Samson ends up slaying, I think it said, 1,000 men. He slays 1,000 men with a donkey jawbone. Okay, now that my hair is prepped and you guys know all the background, we are gonna get to trimming, and the juiciest part of the story, it gets better. Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of nervous because I've never done this before, but honestly could be worse because it's just a trim. Okay, first cut. All the dead ends are just flying and I've never been happier. That's right, you're not messing with me anymore, you dead ends. You. I wish you guys understood how I feel right now. Liberated. Maybe I should forget theology and I should just be a hairdresser. All right, let's continue. So there's a brief period of time where Samson's no longer with his wife and he's kind of looking for a new woman to love. So he ends up sleeping with the prostitute, and that's a whole other part of the story you can check out at the beginning of 16. It's like 2 paragraphs long, but we're gonna skip ahead to the part where Delilah enters. I have to sneeze. Bless me. Okay, so Delilah enters the picture, right? And he is taken aback by this woman's beauty. He's like, dang, that girl is looking mighty fine. So the Philistines know that Samson has the hots for this girl, Delilah. That was a lot of hair. And they tell Delilah that they will each, and by the way, when I say they, I mean the Philistine rulers. The Philistine rulers basically tell Delilah, hey, if you can tell us the way or why Samson is so strong, you know, like the secret to his whole superpower deal, we will each give you 1,000 shekels, which I'm assuming means a lot of money. So being the gold digger that she is, she goes ahead and says, all right. And she tries getting it out of Samson each night that they are together. And this happens not once, not twice, but 3 times. She asks Samson and he gives her a wrong answer each time. And so at this point, I'm like, my guy, she's clearly trying to get something from you. And I don't know why Samson doesn't just run away because this power is really important. But no, instead, he goes ahead and stays with this woman despite her efforts to try to destroy him. And so when her asking doesn't work, she goes ahead and guilt trips him. And she's all like, oh, I thought you loved me, and like, why do you say that you love me but not tell me the truth? Like, what's that about? And so Samson is like, fine, because she does not stop nudging. In fact, it's really funny because it even says in Judges 16:16, with such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. Hilarious. Okay, I don't even know if this is even anymore. I'm just kind of point cutting. Okay, I think they're kind of even. Did I put the hair tie in wrong? Oh no. Oh no, we good. Okay, we're good. It looks good. I'm fine. Okay, it's the back parts I'm really nervous for because I can't necessarily see it, if that makes any sense. So Samson, being the clear guy who's just totally in love with this Delilah girl, he goes ahead and actually tells her the secret, which is that he cannot have a razor touch his head. He can't cut his hair. So the really dangerous and bad part about this is that the Spirit of the Lord actually leaves Samson once he tells Delilah the secret. And we find this out when Delilah cuts his hair, tells the Philistine people to come and capture Samson, and he tries to break free like he tried the last 3 times, but he can't because he no longer has the superhuman strength he was gifted with. There is hair all over my lap. Oh my gosh, I look like a salon floor. So the Philistines violently capture Samson, they gouge his eyes out, they imprison him, and they make him grind their grain. Okay, just a few more on this one. So now we are at the end of the story. Samson basically is in prison, he's grinding this grain, and all the Philistine people are happy to hear that he's captured because he's wreaked havoc on their nation for a long time now. And so naturally, because there's not TV or anything, they need some form of entertainment. So the Philistines are like, all right, we're gonna put Samson on display and make fun of him because he's now imprisoned and he has no strength. But anyways, he's entertaining the people, And Samson realizes that this is a final opportunity to get revenge on the Philistines. So he prays to God like the God-fearing man that he is, and he says, God, give me the strength to basically take down the temple walls to get back at the Philistines for taking away my eyesight. Now, if you remember from earlier, Samson's whole mission and the whole reason that he was a Nazarite child was so that he could carry the Israelites and out of the Philistine rule, basically free them. And so Samson prays this prayer and he puts his hand on the temple walls, which is insane because who knows if this is going to work or not? Who knows if God heard his prayer? But that's what faith is for. Samson had a lot of faith in this moment. So Samson yells as he puts both of his hands on the temple pillar walls, and he yells, God, let me die with the Philistines. And all of a sudden, the temple in its entirety falls down on all of the Philistine people. And I'm sure there were a few survivors, but the idea is that all the rulers were there, so there are no more rulers of Philistine. Thus, Israel is now free. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I'm done with the whole trimming because I no longer see any split ends. Okay, guys, moment of truth. I'm taking the hair out. Okay, that's not that bad. I think that looks good. Okay, now the front pieces. Oh, it's trimmed. It looks so good. Okay, guys, I'm actually really proud of myself right now because I just saved $25 for a trim. That was good. Oh, it's a little wonky right here. That's not good. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up and we're gonna wrap up the video. All right, so there are 3 lessons. Well, there are several lessons we can pick up from the story, but there are 3 lessons I want to focus on that we can learn from the story of Samson and Delilah. The first one is that mental power is stronger and more important than physical power. He had so much strength, but if his mentality was in the right place and he realized the red flags that Delilah was clearly showing when she asked him the first 2 times for his weakness, he would have been much better off, much safer, and he probably would not have had to die in order to get the Israelites out of the Philistine rule, but honestly, that's a question I'm going to have to ask God when I get to heaven. The second lesson we can learn from this story is to not be blinded by love. So like I said earlier, Samson had a weak heart for women constantly, and something that he constantly said or acted upon was that he was in love with these women. His lust for Delilah put himself in an extremely compromising position that ended up leading to his death. We can far too often get so caught up in being in love with somebody that we fall in love with them more than we love God, and that's where the problem begins. And so the moment we start putting someone else on a pedestal and idolize them, like Samson did for Delilah, it's a really bad thing for our relationship with God, and it can immediately draw us off course the same way that Samson got drawn off course from his love, or his lust rather, for Delilah. Okay guys, so for the final lesson that you can learn from this story is that it is never too late to ask God for help. So as you can see, Samson was basically on his deathbed when he was performing for all those people, blind and at his worst point, but God still used him to carry out the plan he had for his life, which is very comforting for all of us who aren't in as a crazy position as Samson. There is nothing that you could ever do to permanently take you off the course that God has for your life. All it took for Samson to finally carry out God's mission was to humble himself out enough to be like, God, I can't do this on my own strength. You're the one who gives me that strength. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I had so much fun trimming my hair for the first time and talking about one of my favorite stories in the Bible. I really hope you were entertained and that it was something new for you to share at the dinner table. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content. I post every Taco Tuesday. And also go follow me on Instagram at MyGodMoments for more Jesus in your feed. Don't forget to comment down below a prayer request if you have any, so that way I can keep you in my prayers. And also, if you trim your own hair at home or you cut your own hair at home, be very careful. Anyway, I hope you guys have the best week ever, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.